Part 104. First Marriage Then Love, Mr. Mayor Please Be Kind. Author, Zhao Nuan. Chapter 1060. For pure text online reading, please visit h2/u003e. What are you talking about? Lin Zhiliang stood up suddenly, stepped forward, and grabbed Li Xinwei's neck. I'm warning you, if you dare to ruin my affairs, don't blame me for not caring about our relationship as husband and wife. Strangle me to death. Li Xinwei closed her eyes calmly. For so many years, I have successfully molded myself into a shrew. Even if I go out and say that you forced me to do everything, it will still be wrong. No one will believe it. Of course, this is all my own choice, and I can't blame anyone. But, for the sake of my husband and wife, I beg you, don't ruin the children, okay? They are my sons, how could I destroy them? Lin Zhiliang let go of her, with a faint smile on his lips. Besides, how could I be willing to strangle you to death? You are my wife? In these years, everything I have done for you has been done willingly. Li Xinwei smiled sadly. I always thought that you would be moved by me and treat me sincerely. Now it seems that this dream of mine will not achieved. In fact, I have known for a long time that you have another woman outside and a pair of twin sons, so you don't mind whether Ven Hang and Wengzia will be dragged down by you at all. Lin Zhiliang, you are the most hypocritical man in the world. I have always known this truth, but I foolishly thought that I could make you change. Speaking of which, I am too narcissistic. On the other hand, I am also too inferior. Can I tell you that one day I saw you shopping with that woman, but I hid. But. After a pause, a bright smile appeared on her lips. There is something I think I should tell you, that is, I know that the woman's name is Yao Shan, and she is Yao Suping's daughter. Tell me, this news, what would Dad do if he found out? How dare you? The calmness on Lin Zhiliang's face disappeared completely, and he looked at his wife angrily. You are really despicable. It seems that I have always underestimated you. However, you said that based on what you have done over the years and the impression you have on your parents, how likely is it that they will believe what you say? By the time they found out, I would have already handled the matter smoothly. Then, I can free my hands to deal with you. There is no point in doing things that harm others and do not benefit oneself. Li Xinwei, you don't need me to remind you about this, right? Lin Zhiliang, you are afraid. Li Xinwei looked at him indifferently. Your current behavior has fully demonstrated that you are extremely scared. You know very well that if I tell this matter, my father and mother will definitely believable. Over the years, although I have done a lot of things to cooperate with you that made my parents displeased, I have never slandered you in front of them, let alone said anything bad about you. Don't say that I vented my anger on you because my plan failed and I was angry. Dad and Mom wouldn't believe it, because I didn't have the guts at all. Even if you say it, I have nothing to be afraid of. For my parents, having another pair of grandsons is simply something to be happy about. Do you think they would shut me and a pair of grandsons out for you? As for what you said, they will never believe you. Lin Zhiliang smiled sarcastically at her. Just because of what you did today, they will not believe you. I had expected that you wanted me to do this kind of thing just because you wanted to abandon me. Li Xinwei smiled back at him. That's why I deliberately acted like an idiot. Do you think Dad was free? Sometimes, you won't wonder why I became like this, right? As soon as the old man suspects or verifies it, many things of yours will not be covered. When the time comes, tell me, am I afraid, or are you afraid? No matter when the time comes, Ven Hang and Wengzia will be my sons, and who knows what your sons will be like in the end. What did you do to Shan Shan? Lin Zhiliang stood up hurriedly and grabbed her arm. Li Xinwei, you know my temper. If you dare to hurt them, I won't ask for anything. You woolen cloth. I can also ask for nothing. Li Xinwei looked at him indifferently. If you have the guts, kill me now. Anyway, I have no motivation to live now. A woman who has lived to this point is extremely cowardly. However, when I knew all the truth, I still cooperated with you in this drama. Regardless of whether I added free play or not, I was stupid enough. Now, no one needs to tell me, I despise myself. Anyway, my two sons are adults. They are the same with or without me. It's okay. Just do it. If I resist, I will be a pig in my next life. Li Xinwei fed pigs when she went to the countryside, so the animal she hated most was pigs. Dare to make such an oath, which means that what she said is absolutely true. Realizing this, Lin Zhiliang couldn't stand up anymore. Quickly softened his voice, and changed his grip to a gentle hold. Look at you, you have been married for life, and you still have such a little temper. Hey, you're telling me that you know that I have a bad temper, but when I get angry, you don't keep your mouth shut. You said that by doing this, aren't you sincerely causing trouble for yourself? I admit that it was my fault that Yao Shan and I were together, but I couldn't help it. I can't say that it was the girl who took the initiative, but the reason was really because I was drunk and thought she was you. It was only later that she found out that she had caused a big trouble. She had agreed that no one would mention it in the future, but unexpectedly, she got pregnant. What would she do if she was a girl? She wanted to have an abortion, but the doctor said that if she really had the operation, she might never be able to have another child in her life. She asked for my opinion. What do you think I can do? The trouble was caused by me. If I forced someone to have an abortion and made them unable to be a mother for the rest of their lives, how cruel do you think I would be? I don't dare to discuss this kind of thing with you, so I can only grit my teeth and move forward. Originally, she thought that after the child was born, she would give it to me, and then she would find a place where no one knew her and start over. Of course, I promised her that I would give her enough financial help. However, when the child was born, she was reluctant to let it go. I couldn't forcefully separate mother and child. That would be too cruel, don't you think? You are a mother yourself, so you should know what that feels like, right? Therefore, I had no choice but to let her live with the child first, and then let her get married when she meets the right person. As for the child, it doesn't matter whether she has her last name or mine. Anyway, I don't plan to snatch it back. When you met me accompanying her and a pair of children, it was probably to show her neighbors. The place she is renting now has a good environment, but a woman with 2 children will inevitably be gossiped about. For her and for the children to live a peaceful life, I promised her that I would spend 1 day with them and their children every month. What she told her neighbors was that her husband worked out of town and only had 1 day off per month. Xinwei, what I'm telling you now is all the truth. Just now, when I was provoked by you, I just wanted to be angry with you. Hey, I have said that I want to change my temper, but I can't change it. Don't be the same as me. Okay? Lin Zhiliang, I really want to believe you. Li Xinwei sighed heavily, but I don't dare. After living with you for so many years, I don't even know if you have ever been real. It has become your instinct to speak human words when meeting people and lying when seeing ghosts. Sometimes you even don't know whether you are speaking human words or nonsense, right? Li Xinwei, Lin Zhiliang glared at his wife with dissatisfaction. Isn't it because of the status of our little family in the family that I did that? I haven't been as popular as my eldest brother in my father's favor since I was a child. If I don't think of anything else, I can only increasingly marginalized. I don't care, but what about our son? Wen Hang is stubborn, and Wang Xiu is stubborn. If I, the father, don't fight for them, this family will really become the eldest brothers in the future. Look, you have become accustomed to saying these words. If I hadn't been husband and wife with you for so many years, I would really believe it, but... Li Xinwei looked at him funny. Have you forgotten? Yes, You have taught me to say this kind of thing many times, and I have memorized it. Now, if you use it as a tool to persuade me, even if I want to believe it, I can't deceive myself. Don't embarrass me. Okay. Lin Zhiliang sighed, what on earth do you want me to do to believe me? Take me to see Yao Shan and explain some things in front of her. Li Xinwei looked at him with a calm expression, for example, let her get married and let her take care of the children. You are forcing others to do something difficult. If I say this, how will she have the courage to live? Lin Zhiliang frowned and looked at her. I promise that there will be no other wife except you in this life, okay? No. Li Xinwei shook her head, the validity period of your guarantee is too short. If I believed it, I would be a fool. Lin Zhiliang, you have used me for so many years, and I am willing to do it. Now, I want to fighting for yourself is another matter. In the past, I obeyed you in everything. It didn't mean that I believed what you said, nor did it mean that I thought it was right to do so. It was just because I loved you. But now, after seeing everything clearly, I decided not to love you anymore, so I put away your behavior and insisted on my request. If we can do it, we will continue to be husband and wife. If we can't, we will be strangers. Stranger, Lin Zhiliang sneered, with more contempt in his eyebrows, if you become a stranger to me, where can you go? Don't forget, you have completely offended those people in your mother's family. Lin Zhiliang, do you think you know me particularly well? Li Xinyu asked lightly with a smile. R1152. The fastest update, please read. First marriage then love, Mr. Mayor please be kind. Author, Zhao Nuan Nuan. Chapter 1061. What do you mean? Lin Zhiliang's face darkened little by little with a bad premonition in his heart. Please tell me clearly, why do I not understand you? Just like you have lied to me so much, I also lied to you. As a human being, I will think about myself. Even if I didn't think about myself at first, when I realized that all my efforts were ineffective, I also learned to think about myself. However, compared to the many differences you have lied to me about, there is only one thing I hide from you, and that is that there is no breakup between me and my parents' family at all. And what you see, they and I are incompatible, it's just the appearance they make that they are worthy of me. Sighing, Li Xinwei had a funny look on her face. I won't hide it from you, this is me. My sister reminded me. I didn't take it seriously at the time, but I just didn't want to chill her heart, so I did it. Now it seems that my sister is really the best person to me in the world. If she hadn't let me keep this hand, I'm afraid I would have been bluffed by you today. That's not what we have to do now. Li Xinwei, can you distinguish your priorities? I promise that when my plan is successful, I will take you away as soon as possible, and then I will find a way to capture Ven Hang and Wang Ziyu. BA knows. My only request is that we bring Ming Ming and Liang Liang, the twins, okay. Lin Zhiliang raised his hands as he spoke. Yao Shan will definitely not leave with us, I swear. Lin Zhiliang, why do you have to leave? Li Xinwei let out a long sigh. You will really be happy if you go to a place where you are unfamiliar with the place and don't understand the language. I have no other choice. A rare trace of sincerity appeared in Lin Zhiliang's eyes. Dad has become suspicious. The truth will be found out soon, and by then, I won't be able to leave even if I want to. If it weren't for the purpose of paralyzing Dad, I wouldn't let you do such a thing now. Everyone thought my compromise was to gain management rights. There is still a buffer for a while, so I have to seize the opportunity. If you miss it, you will never have another chance. Xinwei, I admit, I originally wanted to leave with Yao Shan and Ming Ming Liang, but now I have changed my mind. Yes, I am a selfish person. In order to leave for my own safety, I can only abandon her and catch you. And, I figured it out too. Taking her with you will only become a drag, but you are different. You can speak foreign languages and think more thoughtfully than her. With you by my side, no matter where I go, it will never be too bad. Okay, Li Xinyu nodded. I believe you this time, but Lin Zhiliang, I warn you, if I find out that you have lied to me in the slightest, I will never let you go in this life, no matter where you are. Do not worry. I really didn't lie to you at all about this time. Lin Zhiliang breathed a sigh of relief and put his arms around Li Xinwei's shoulders. People always have to go through some things before they can figure out who the most important thing is. Fortunately, it's not too late for me to understand. From an angle that he couldn't see, Li Xinwei raised her lips disdainfully, but what she said was, fortunately, it's not too late for you to understand, and we all have a chance to come back. One day before Nan Nan Bai Bei turned 100, Chu Xia's family and MRS Lin Yang Kaizhou returned to City A. Dad, do you have the latest news about Zhou Mikang? If it's not convenient for you to tell me, just tell me if he is safe. The first time he saw Zhou Jingping, Chu Xia asked his teacher about Tongzi's current situation. Don't worry, he is absolutely safe now, but he is currently in a place where I really can't give you news. Zhou Jingping sighed as he spoke, my child, I'm really embarrassing you. However, you also know how much Xiaomi values you. You have to trust him. As long as conditions permit, he will give you the news as soon as possible. As for what I know, I didn't know it through him. Dad, I know. I ask this not because I am jealous of you, but because I know that with your level, you should be able to know something. Bian said. Chu Xia handed Nan Nan in her arms to her father-in-law. Look, does this guy look more and more like Zhou Mixon as he grows? Reaching out to hug his eldest grandson, Zhou Jingping's stern cheek showed a rare gentle smile. As soon as he lowered his head, Lin Yangkai grabbed his arm. What do you want to do? You. Zhou Jingping looked at his wife helplessly. You don't think I want to kiss him, do you? I mean, in your eyes, am I such an unreliable person? My eldest grandson is now so tender that he can squeeze out tears. I dare to kiss him with my stub-bled face? I really impress you. Lin Yangkai gave him a dissatisfied look. Stop making excuses, you clearly wanted to do that just now. Conscience of heaven and earth, I just want to poke my head down to see more clearly. It's not like you don't know that I'm short-sighted. Do you need to make such a fuss? Oh. Lin Yangkai smiled sarcastically, I forgot about this. Zhou Jingping shook his head and reached out to touch his eldest grandson's head. Nanan, Grandma is too confused. We can't imitate her in the future, right? Look at my Nanan and Xiaomi, they really seem to be carved from the same mold. Tisk, tisk. Then he looked at Bai Bei, who was held in Mr. Zhou's arms strangely. This little thing looks so much like his mother. My two eldest grandsons are really good at growing up. You are the one who is confused. Lin Yangkai stretched out her hand to poke her husband and snorted, without me, how could you have such a pair of grandsons? You dare to say that I am confused, Okay, I'm wrong. I'm wrong, why not? Zhou Jingping looked at his wife funny. Why do you like to have a temper like a child? I was just joking with the little guy, just for fun. Look at you, your face is so ugly it's about to be pulled to the heel. Do you think the children are ignorant when they are young? Lin Yangkai rolled her eyes at him. They can't say it with their mouths, but they understand it in their hearts. How wrong would I be if I was misled by you? Can a 3-month-old child be misled by me? Zhou Jingping smiled silently, then he is really a prodigy. Go away. Lin Yangkai stretched out her hand to forcefully carry her eldest grandson over. My grandson is a child prodigy. Since you look down on my grandson, stay away from him. Xia, do you think your mother is becoming more and more unreasonable? Zhou Jingping looked at his daughter-in-law helplessly. Do you think what Dad just said is right? Is your mother treating me like this? I just hugged her when I came back. Less than 5 minutes is too much, Right. Dad, I'm going out to greet Xiaoxing and the others. According to the time, it should be here. She couldn't get involved in the matter of her father-in-law and mother-in-law, so someone changed the subject and quickly ran away. Hey, it's you who scared away my daughter-in-law. Lin Yangkai rolled her eyes at her husband again. At such an old age, you are not sensible at all, but you know how to make things difficult for your children. If it were you, would you dare to answer? The moment he went out in early summer, Zhou Jingping also realized that what he had just done was too unreliable. Therefore, when his wife accused him, he would not respond and just smiled guiltily. After all, it was Mrs. Zhou who felt sorry for her son. She glared at Mr. Zhou and said, "Okay, you've been hugging him for almost half an hour. Give Bai a hug quickly. He has no ability himself, why should he take it from me?" Mr. Zhou stared back at the old lady with dissatisfaction, then turned to Lin Yangkai, "Boss, wife, just let him have a good time." The father-in-law had spoken, and it was no longer good to leave her husband alone. Lin Yangkai had to reluctantly return her eldest grandson to Zhou Jingping. The moment she turned around, she saw the disappointment flashing in the corner of her eldest daughter-in-law's eyes. Her heart skipped a beat, and then she, pretending to be casual, she walked to Yu Tao and reached out to pick up her eldest granddaughter. "Come on, my eldest son, let grandma hug you. Let's ignore that big bad grandpa. When we come back, we only have grandson in our eyes. How can you take me?" The eldest granddaughter has forgotten about it, hasn't she? Some words are just like this. They were really said outright, but they didn't let the other party think too much. Kong Chuying, who was a little embarrassed at first, laughed. "Nan and Bai Bei just came back. It's right for the eldest brother to be more curious about them. Well, sister-in-law, you can't wrongly accuse me like this. These days, she has been living with her daughter. After the initial discomfort, she has basically integrated into the family. However, she still feels a little regretful that her daughter could not add a boy to the Zhou family. What's more worrying is that her arrival will make her daughter's life worse, but she has already promised to live with her daughter, so she can't go back on it. This heart goes up and down from time to time. Just now, she saw her daughter's loneliness and felt pain in her heart. Thinking of her family's situation, she couldn't help but blame herself. She couldn't do anything to help her except being a burden to her daughter. Lin Yangkai's actions were clearly telling her that they had never paid less attention to the eldest daughter-in-law because she had not given birth to a son. Well, the reason was all about appearance. Since Nan and Bai Bei did not stay in City A, it was inevitable that they would pay more attention to her. The meaning of the words has been made clear. If she says it, no one will feel embarrassed. At this age, she will still do such things. Chu Xia said that she was going out to greet Luo Xiaoxing and others, which was both an excuse and a fact. They must come over for the two little ones' 100th birthday. Even if they are already several months pregnant, they are absolutely indispensable. In addition, several of their husbands were not around. She had so many relatives with her and understood the situation. Even if she was worried, she would not be in panic all day long. Luo Xiaoxing and Jun Daodu were different. Just after they got married, their husbands left together, and they were pregnant with the baby alone. How could they feel at ease even if their family members were with them? Just as he was thinking about it, he saw a car coming to pick up a few people from a distance. A smile quickly broke out on Chu Xia's face. He took a few steps forward and waved to the front of the car. Early summer. Early summer. As soon as they got out of the car, Luo Xiaoxing and Jun Daodu hugged Chu Xia Cuba and asked, "Do you have any news about them?" To be continued. LWXS. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. First marriage then love, Mr. Mayor please be kind. Author, Zhao Nuan Nuan. Chapter 1062. You too. Chu Xia shook her head helplessly at Luo Xiaoxing and Jun Daodu. You must allow me to say hello to my aunt and Haining first before I can talk to you in detail, right? He he. Luo Xiaoxing scratched her head in embarrassment and pulled Jun Daodu, whose face was also flushed, to stand aside. Knowing that the two of them were anxious, she welcomed Li Aiwan and Zhou Haining, who had come with them, into the hall. Chu Xia took them back to her room. Of course, Zhou Haining also came with her. She was not familiar with the others, and only by following my sister-in-law closely can I feel more at ease. Don't worry, they are safe. It's just that it's inconvenient to call home and send a telegram, so there's been no news. She didn't give in, and as soon as she entered the house, Chu Xia told the two of them what she knew. You didn't say that on purpose to reassure us, right? After hesitation, Luo Xiaoxing asked with some uncertainty. Do you think I'm that kind of person? Chu Xia rolled her eyes at her. When have you ever seen me lie to someone? It's a shame that I still think of you as my best friend. I'm not doubting you. Luo Xiaoxing defended anxiously. I'm not in a special situation now, otherwise, I would never have this doubt. Jun Daodu, who had already breathed a sigh of relief, immediately became nervous when she heard what Luo Xiaoxing said. She looked at Chu Xia eagerly and hesitated to speak. The two people's performance made Zhou Haining and Zhou Haining look nervous. Chu Xia looked at several people helplessly. Please, don't look at me like that, okay? I'm telling the truth. Do you have to swear an oath before you can believe it? No, no, Luo Xiaoxing smiled coquettishly. Isn't it true that caring leads to chaos? Don't be the same as us. Now I believe it. I really believe it. Me too. Jun Daodu quickly answered. Chu Xia, don't blame us for being suspicious. Mainly, this situation is too abnormal. But there was a pause. She smiled sheepishly. It's also because you are concerned that you are confused. Your teacher is with them. If something really happened, you wouldn't pretend to be so happy, he he. Chu Xia gave her a speechless look, really not knowing what to say. At this time, Zhao Yulan walked in hurriedly. Xia, your eldest grandpa, grandma, aunt, uncle, and your spiritual aunt are all here. Didn't she say she couldn't come? My aunt is here too. Chu Xia stood up with a face of surprise. Didn't she say she couldn't come back, since she returned to Dalin's house? Besides Lin Wenbin, her favorite person is the one who looks like her. The most similar to Aunt Zhiling. The other party really cared for her. Of course, her uncle and auntie also loved her very much. But the feeling was completely different, or maybe it was because the two looked alike. Lin Zhiling was absolutely unprincipled towards her, regardless of anything or any conflict she had with anyone. Lin Zhiling would choose to support her without hesitation. This kind of blind trust cannot be achieved unless it comes from deep feelings in the heart. She turned to look at Luo Xiaoxing and Jun Daodu. Do you want to stay here for a while, or come down with me? Luo Xiaoxing waved her hand. We'd better stay here. Come and find us when you're done. Okay. After a slight hesitation, Chu Xia agreed. Among all the relatives and friends of the Zhou family and themselves, the two of them were only familiar with Zhou Jiping and Zhou Xiangping. It would be better for them to go down and hang out among a group of unknown people. Stay quietly up there. Besides, their current physical condition is not suitable for exertion. I believe no one will find fault with them. And as soon as Chu Xia appeared at the top of the stairs, Lin Zhiling hugged Nan Nan and came over, raising his head and smiling at her. I was planning to take the little guy up to find you, but you're coming down now. Auntie is here, how can I sit still? Shuxia ran downstairs in 3 or 2 steps, greeted everyone in the Lin family, and then took Lin Zhiling to sit down and looked him up and down. Little auntie, it seems that I'm living a good study life, but I'm a little fat. Really, Lin Zhiling's big eyes immediately turned into crescent moons. I also feel like I'm a little fatter, and your uncle still said I was talking nonsense. Different from the fear of fatness in later generations, most people in this era still like to be tall and strong, and Lin Zhiling, who is slender, has always been extremely envious of that kind of figure. Therefore, listening to what Chu Xia said, she is really overjoyed. Chu Xia looked at the other party with a dark look. She just told the truth. She originally thought that the other party would be anxious to lose weight because of this, but she didn't expect that he would actually enjoy it so much. Although Zhou Mikang was not here, the centenary banquet was still very successful. However, for Chu Xia, it was inevitable that he would feel a little disappointed. If he missed some things, he would never have the chance again. As the biological father of 2 children, I will never be able to make up for this shock in my life. When arresting Zhou, Nanan grabbed a pen and notebook, and Bai Bei grabbed a gun. Because of this, the elders unanimously decided to train the 2 children in the future, with the South in the South and the North in the martial arts. Although Chu Xia felt that this initial choice was completely random and made no sense, since the elders had determined it so, she did not refute it. After the banquet ended and everyone was sitting together chatting, Lin Zhiling took Chu Xia back to the room. Luo Xiaoxian and Jun Daodu, who were a step late, had to sit back in disappointment. Zhou Xiangping and Zhou Jiping looked at the others in amusement and shook their heads. Can you please stop making such expressions? Is it so difficult to be with us? Zhou Xiangping asked. Of course not, Luo Xiaoxian explained with a grimace. We want to ask Chu Xia alone if there is any more detailed news. Fourth sister, you can understand this feeling, right? Okay, I misunderstood you. Zhou Xiangping quickly apologized to a few people and said, don't worry, they will be fine. Sometimes, no news is the best news, and you too also you need to educate yourself more, otherwise, you will definitely be the one to regret it in the future. Don't think I'm trying to scare you. My classmate is half a year older than me. She got married at about the same time as me, but she got pregnant earlier than me. The baby is now 2.5 years old. When the little boy was first born, he was white and chubby, and he laughed whenever he was teased. The whole family liked him very much. However, when he was 1 year old, she realized that something was wrong, because other children could already play with him at 1 year old. The adults made appropriate expressions, but her child had no second expression other than laughter. Then, she took the child to the hospital for a checkup. The final result was that the child's problem was brought from the mother's womb. Because the mother's mood was too gloomy, it affected the child's intellectual development. Therefore, the child will probably only be able to I am still in the stage where I love to laugh. Her biggest problem is overthinking. When she was pregnant, her husband happened to be sent to work in another city, so she was always suspicious. Then, she was under low pressure every day. She couldn't bear it anymore, so she came to me to complain. At first I tried to persuade her, but after a while, I got tired of it, because you were in a good mood and you tried to persuade her, but she contradicted you. In the end, she herself was in a bad mood. You also made her angry, so I simply stopped trying to persuade her. Every time she came to complain, I just listened without saying a word. She must have noticed my impatience, and she stopped coming to me to say anything, and even gradually lost contact. It wasn't until the child found out that something was wrong that she came to me to ask for help. To be honest, I regretted it at the time. If I wouldn't refuse to be her emotional trash can because of my own mood, or her child wouldn't be like that. Of course, it may have nothing to do with it, but whenever I see a child, I feel particularly uncomfortable. Of course, I am just saying this to warn everyone that they should pay attention to avoid regrets in the future. I am definitely not saying that if you are unhappy, you will definitely be like this. Luo Xiaoxian, who knew her best, looked at her helplessly. Fourth sister, it's not like we don't know your character, do we need to explain so much? I'm afraid you won't take it seriously, so I have to say it. However, in order to prevent you from misunderstanding, I still have to explain what needs to be explained. Josei Yangping smiled and added, actually, I know you didn't misunderstand, it's just that, to be on the safe side, it's better to speak out your true thoughts. Chu Xia, who was pulled into the room by Lin Zhiling, looked at the other party with a puzzled face. Little aunt, what on earth is going on that is so mysterious? Her mother tried to follow him, but was dismissed by the other party. If you tell her that it's okay, she won't believe it even if you beat her to death. I have something to tell you. After hesitating, Lin Zhiling looked at Chu Xia seriously. I have been reinventing myself during this period. There is a woman in the class who actually has a picture of Zhou Mikang. And told others that that was her fiancé. Of course, I questioned her, but she said that the man in the photo was not Zhou Mikang, but her fiancé Zhu Jianwen. I went to check this person out, and there was actually one. To be honest, if I hadn't known that Mr. Zhou was on a mission, I would have really thought that it was him. Later, you can quietly ask your mother-in-law if there has been any lost children at home. Don't blame me for overthinking that boy. He looks so much like Commander Xiao Zhou that if he were put on a military uniform, you probably wouldn't be able to tell him apart. Auntie, are you kidding me? Chu Xia looked at Lin Zhiling with some uncertainty. I've heard of people who look alike, but this is the first time I've heard of people who look alike. Why would I joke with you about this kind of thing? After hesitating, Lin Zhiling coughed again. Okay, I won't hide it, I'm worried about whether that person is actually Xiaomi, to be continued. LWXS. First marriage then love, Mr. Mayor please be kind. Author, Zhao Nuan Nuan. Chapter 1063. Today is Nuan's birthday, so please update less often. Starting from the 9th day of the lunar month, updates will be normal. Dash. After Lin Zhiling expressed his true suspicion, Chu Xia fell into silence. After a while, he raised his head and looked at the other party seriously. Little aunt, I think this possibility is very small. I believe him. Okay. Lin Zhiling nodded, I trust your judgment. Little aunt, it's not that I don't believe you. Chu Xia smiled sheepishly at Lin Zhiling, you are only thinking about me, and I know this very well. However, having known Zhou Mixang for so long, he never hid anything from me. Even if Zhu Jianwen was really Zhou Mixang, there must be a compelling reason, and he would definitely explain it to me afterwards. I remember my little aunt's kindness to me, so little aunt, you can't misunderstand me, and you can't not tell me anything in the future. Don't worry, am I so narrow-minded? Lin Zhiling looked at her funny, you two have a good relationship, and trusting each other is what we like to see most as elders. Can you not think too much about my little aunt? Are you so cautious? Of course I know that my little aunt is not such a narrow-minded person, but I still have to say what needs to be said. Isn't it that some misunderstandings are caused by taking it for granted that the other party understands? See, you still don't believe my little aunt. Knowing that Lin Zhiling was teasing her on purpose, Chu Xia smiled and nodded, yes, I just don't believe my little aunt. I'd better not kiss me in the future. She's just a white-eyed wolf, right? You. Now it was Lin Zhiling's turn to be helpless. Why are you so annoying, kid? Sister-in-law. Chu Xia smiled and took the other person's arm. The more you say that to me, the more you kiss me. It seems that I will continue to work hard in the future. Lin Zhiling. What can she say when she meets such a scoundrel? After Nan Nan Bei turned 100, he stayed at home for more than 10 days. The whole family returned to the capital in early summer. Of course, Yu Tao, Yan Yan, and Kong Qiuying were also traveling with them. On the surface, Kong Qiuying seemed to be quite adaptable to living in the Zhou family, but after all, the conditions between the two families were so different that she still felt a little uncomfortable. Yes. After she turned 100 years old, Yu Tao still forcibly dragged her to the capital. Kong Qiuying just resisted for a moment and then agreed. Through her contact with Zhao Yulan and his wife, she had found that they were particularly easy to get along with and they had similar backgrounds. Naturally, there are more common topics. Moreover, when Nan Nan Baibei was 100 years old, Yu Guangzhu, Yu Gang, Yu Jiang, Yu Xiang and Yu Mei came to the Zhou family with things. Although they didn't cause trouble, you could tell by their attitudes. Still unwilling to break up with the Zhou family just now. Especially Yu Xiang, when she saw Zhou Huikang, her eyes were like flies seeing flesh, and her eyes were almost fixed on him. If Zhou Huikang hadn't adapted to her behavior long ago, she would have been stared at so hard that she couldn't eat. Kong Qiuying felt very shameless about this, but the other party came politely carrying something, so she couldn't really drive him out with a big stick. She didn't care, but how could the Zhou family do such a thing? Since the purpose of this is to prevent the son, daughter-in-law and daughter from extracting residual value from the eldest daughter, the best way is to stay away so that the other party has no excuses and reasons to come to her. Therefore, even though she felt that it was inappropriate to do so, she still agreed. After arriving in the capital, she learned that Yu Xiang had brought something to Zhou's house again, and she was extremely grateful for her decision. When her mood improved, her body naturally recovered. In just 1 month, Yu Tao lost 8 pounds, and her original beauty gradually emerged. When Zhou Zikang went to see her, his eyes were obviously much hotter than before. After returning to the capital from City A, she only stayed for a week and returned to school in early summer. Nan Nan Baibei was still breastfeeding. She could not be as carefree as before. She would run home to the 2 little ones immediately after class every day. Nutritional supplements. Just running back and forth like this, her figure became more slender. Zhao Yulan felt really distressed when she saw it, but she also knew that she couldn't persuade her daughter, so she had to discuss with Lin Baohe secretly, why not just take the child and go to school to find her daughter every day. How can that be done? Lin Baohe looked at his wife helplessly. My classmates have always made irresponsible remarks. If you continue to make trouble like this, where will her face go? Zhao Yulan sighed, if you lose your face, your body will suffer. Xia is still young, so it doesn't matter if she's a little thinner. Besides, compared to our previous conditions, it's already a life of immortality. Do you think either of us would have dared to think that we would have the life we have today? Look at the children who are the same age as Xia now. How many of them can live like her? It doesn't matter if she suffers a little when she's young, but don't protect her too much. This is because our Xia is a sensible person. Otherwise, I don't know how much I would have been spoiled by you. Thinking about the child's previous personality, do you think the Zhou family would like it? Why are you bringing up the past so well? Zhao Yulan sighed, why am I protecting her so much? The child seems to be doing well, but it is not easy. There has been no news about Xiaomi for several months. You said, Chu Xia cannot think about it in her heart, she just doesn't say it in front of us, she doesn't want us to worry, and we can't help much, so I thought that pampering her more can also make her feel better. Feel better? You can't say this in front of your in-laws. People think you think they are treating our Xia poorly. Tower is also here. To compare, do you think the Zhou family has done enough? Kong Qiuying was originally feeling guilty because Tower, as the eldest daughter-in-law, could not add a boy to the Zhou family. She always has to consider other people's feelings when doing things, right? I'm just talking to you, why do you have to complain so much? Zhao Yulan looked at her husband dissatisfied, if I can't even talk to you, how can I still talk to you? Who said that? Okay, I was wrong. Lin Baohe quickly apologized, Aren't I also afraid that you would do something to embarrass ya? In fact, when I said it just now, I knew that I was overthinking it. If I really said it, I am used to early summer even more than you are, so how can I have the shame to criticize you, right? Okay, let's not blame anyone. Actually. Zhao Yulan sighed and smiled bitterly. Both of us are panicking because of Xiaomi's matter, which is why we are so angry. Tell me, when will the child come back? Who knows? Lin Baohe also sighed. If I can figure it out, I don't have to worry. Even if Xia complains to us and cries, I will feel better, hey. To be completed continued, LWXS. First marriage then love, Mr. Mayor please be kind. Author, Zhao Nuan. Chapter 1064. Updated today. Regarding the fact that there is a Zhu Jianwen who looks very similar to Zhou Mixang, Chu Xia has never mentioned it to anyone. Secretly, she has no worries or doubts about it. She believes that Zhou Mixang is a good person, whether he is or is not. He has his reasons. On this day, Lin Yangkai found the school in a hurry. She was summoned out just halfway through the early summer class. Mom, what happened? Seeing Lin Yangkai standing anxiously outside the door, Chu Xia immediately panicked, knowing that she would go back to breastfeed Nan Nan Bai Bei after class. If there was nothing urgent, the other party would. It was impossible to come to her at this time. You go with Mom. Lin Yangkai didn't explain, holding her hand and running out faster. You'll know when we get there. The car drove straight to the outskirts of the city. Chu Xia looked at Lin Yangkai with a tense face in confusion. Mom, what's going on? Can you tell me a little bit first? You look like this, I'm really panicking, it's fatal. After pondering for a while, Lin Yangkai looked at her daughter-in-law. During the 100th anniversary banquet of Nan Nan Bei Bei, your little aunt came to you and said something specifically, right? Yes, there is nothing to lie about this kind of thing, Chu Xia readily admitted. You kid. Lin Yangkai sighed. You say we are a family, but in your heart you still don't think the Zhou family is your own home, right? Otherwise, why wouldn't you mention it to us at all? Mom, why do you think so? Chu Xia looked at her helplessly. I didn't mention it because I believed in him, and at the same time I didn't want you to worry about it. How come you don't regard the Zhou family as your own home? Really? Lin Yangkai looked at Chu Xia in disbelief. You didn't say that on purpose just to make Mom happy, right? Chu Xia smiled bitterly and shook her head. Mom, then I really want to ask you, we have been a family for so long, why do you still don't understand me so well? Do you think I am the kind of person who will swallow my anger and ask for compromise? If I really have doubts, I will speak up. Even I will find it myself. Since I didn't mention it, it means that I trust Zhou Mikang 100%. Shouldn't Mom be happy about this? Of course I should be happy, Lin Yangkai smiled with relief. You say that, but it makes my mother feel ashamed. It depends on what Mom wants. Are you taking me to meet that person who looks very similar to Zhou Mikang, now that the topic has come to this? In early summer, we no longer hide and tuck. He simply asked frankly. Yes, Lin Yangkai nodded, but now it seems that it is unnecessary. Sighing, Lin Yangkai smiled sheepishly. Mom was afraid that she wouldn't understand the explanation, so she wanted to take you to see it together. After thinking about it, Chu Xia said, then don't go see me. Just tell me what happened. It's okay to run over like this with so much force. It's a bit bad, don't you think so, Mom? Lin Yangkai said without thinking, there's nothing wrong with it, let's go and meet him. Mom is familiar with him. Not too familiar. That. Lin Yangkai hurriedly interrupted Chu Xia, just treat it as a helper and go meet her. Ah, after being stunned for a moment, an idea flashed in Chu Xia's mind, but she felt it was impossible, so she looked at Lin Yangkai with a confused look on her face, but hesitated to speak. Yes, that's my son too. Ah, Chu Xia's voice suddenly raised an octave. Although I thought it was possible, I still felt so surprised when I actually heard it. Lin Yangkai continued, Jianwen and Xiaomi are twins, but Jianwen was born 5 minutes earlier than Xiaomi, so Jianwen is the eldest and Xiaomi is the second. Why would you send it out? I didn't give him away intentionally, but... After being silent for a long time, Lin Yangkai continued, it was because the situation at that time was that I couldn't take care of him, so I had to give the boss to someone else. The conditions at that time were not as good as now. When I was pregnant with the brothers, my health was not particularly good. I had no milk when I was born. They were born prematurely and were weaker than other children. The doctor said that if he wanted both children to survive, he could only breastfeed. Otherwise, he could not guarantee the result. The house leaked and it rained all night. When he was anxious, the milk came back. He could barely feed one, let alone two. At that time, both your grandfather and your father went to the front line. Your grandmother and your second aunt tried their best to prepare delicious food for me, but it didn't have much effect. In the end, it was me who made the decision to make healthier food. The boss gave it as a gift. That was also a mother who had just given birth. However, her baby died within 2 days of birth. Knowing the situation of our family, her mother-in-law took the initiative to find me. After much hesitation, I agreed. Of course I was reluctant, but in order to let the children survive, I could only make that choice. For this reason, I hid in bed and cried secretly all night. That family was also afraid that I would regret it, so they left the hospital and took their children away the next day. To be honest, I regretted it the moment I lost sight of them. However, I tried my best to find the family, so I had no choice but to give up. Later, your grandfather and your father came back. I asked them to bring the eldest son back, and they agreed, but in the end they told me, that was it. If I wanted the child back, I would lose 2 more lives. So. Lin Yangkai sighed heavily and smiled bitterly, I can only accept the reality. Over the years, I have forced myself to never think about it, and my family is even more taboo about mentioning it. Does Zhou Mikang know it himself? He doesn't know, and no one else knows except your eldest brother. Lin Yangkai sighed again, you see, your eldest brother is not as good as Xiaomi in every way, but he is actually quite smart. When Xiaomi and his brother were born, he went to see them, so he knew about it. Later, he asked me where my other little brother had gone. I told him that he was not allowed to tell anyone about this matter. Otherwise, his mother would be sad, and he really never mentioned it again. In fact, until now, I'm not sure if he really understands this matter. Anyway, since my mother talked to him, his behavior is that he never knows what this matter looks like. Think about it for a moment. Chu Xia understood what Lin Yangkai meant. Mom is taking me to see Zhu Jianwen now. Does she want me to go on the grounds that I admitted my wrong husband? Xia. Lin Yangkai looked at her daughter-in-law with a worried expression. Mom knows it's not good to do this, but... She bit her lip. After all, that was her biological son who was pregnant for 10 months. At that time, giving it away was a last resort, but later on, there was no other way to find it. And your father and your grandfather have been hiding his address. Even if I wanted to look for it, I wouldn't be able to find it. It's not like Mom hasn't thought about investigating on her own, but... If you really do that, your grandfather and dad will be particularly disappointed. After careful consideration, Mom had to keep it in her heart. This time, someone misidentified him. After calling me specifically to ask how Xiaomi had been demobilized, I found out where he was. When I went to check, I happened to meet Lin's Hilling. She was very straightforward and asked me if I was also there because of Zhu Jianwen's affairs, so I told her this past incident. She was very upset and said that because of her misunderstanding, you might also have misunderstood. Originally, she came to explain to you in person, and I begged her not to tell this matter. I want to find you personally and come with me to meet Zhu Jianwen. Xia, Mom has no other intentions. He was raised by a family, and it was because of Mom's nod that that family ran away secretly. Therefore, Mom doesn't blame them, and she won't try to snatch him back. However, Mom wanted to see him personally. Mom knew that this approach was still a bit selfish. However, Mom couldn't control her thoughts. Mom didn't tell your grandma about this matter. Xia, if you don't want to help Mom, Mom won't blame you. In fact, Mom just thinks that going there alone will make people suspicious, so. Chu Xia interrupted Lin Yangkai's explanation. Mom, I understand how you feel, and I will help you. I knew that my precious daughter-in-law would definitely turn to me. Lin Yangkai hugged Chu Xia's shoulders happily. Mom owes you a favor. If you have any difficulties in the future, ask Mom for help. Mom will 100% agree. You. Chu Xia smiled and joked, okay, Mom, your debt is huge. Be careful and you will regret it later. In her own eyes, she also felt that Lin Yangkai's behavior was a bit cruel. However, what the other party did back then was not aboveboard enough. It would not be an exaggeration to describe it as adding insult to injury. Therefore, now that Lin Yangkai is playing this trick, no matter whether it is right or wrong, she will cooperate. When she actually saw Zhu Jianwen, Chu Xia was also shocked. Although she was mentally prepared after hearing Lin Zhiling's description before, seeing it with her own eyes was incredible. The two brothers lived in completely different backgrounds, but they are very similar in appearance and temperament. If there is a difference, it is that Zhu Jianwen's eyes are softer. Are you two looking for me? Zhu Jianwen looked at the two people who were looking at him blankly, with a puzzled look on his face. He was at work and informed him that someone was looking for him. As a result, what he saw was this scene. Zhou Mikang, why are you hiding here? Chu Xia, who had come back to his senses, looked indignant. It's a shame that Mom and I are still at home worrying about you, and Dad said you were under special circumstances so he didn't give us any news. If we believed it, we would really have been deceived by Dad. Excuse me, what do you mean? Zhu Jianwen looked at Chu Xia with a puzzled expression. He was also puzzled by his own reaction. He was not disgusted with her questioning. You're still pretending to be with me, Chu Xia stroked her forehead speechlessly. Don't use the excuse of amnesia to deal with me. Zhu Jianwen looked at Chu Xia seriously. Comrade, you have really admitted the wrong person. My name is not Zhou Mikang. My name is Zhu Jianwen, and I am the head teacher of Class 1 and Class 2. Pretend again. Chu Xia took out a photo from her bag and handed it to him. Hey, look at this yourself and then make it up for me. I'll see if you can make it up. Zhou Mikang, you are really good at it. You said you would work hard to support our three mothers, but the result was not good. You hid yourself and disappeared, and you didn't attend your child's 100th birthday. Do you think you went too far? If you really have another woman outside, just tell me. If I, Lin Chuxia, rely on you to not let go and not divorce, I will be a pig. Looking at the people in the photo, Zhu Jianwen was also shocked. Is this too scary? The man in the photo was clearly him, but he could be sure that he had never been photographed in military uniform. If he had been in other clothes, he might have thought it was him. After a long while, he said, no, you really got the wrong person. Although the person in the photo looks the same as me, it's really not me. I also want to be a soldier, but my parents don't. I can only give up. Being able to take pictures in military uniform is my biggest wish, but unfortunately, I don't have the qualifications. Really? Chu Xia looked at Lin Yangkaiu, who had just come back to her senses, in confusion. Mom, Zhou Mikang shouldn't be pretending like this. Maybe, we really recognized the wrong person. Impossible, Lin Yangkaiu grabbed Zhu Jianwen's hand. You are my son, my biological son. Comrade Auntie, don't do this. Zhu Jianwen's face turned red and he tried his best to pull out his hand. This is in a public place, please don't do this, okay? Xiaomi, you can't be like this. Lin Yangkaiu, who had fully recovered her consciousness, calmly changed the subject. You said that no matter how busy you are, no matter how special the situation is, you can't leave your wife and son alone. If it weren't for someone else, seeing you here, we are all still in the dark. Auntie, please don't embarrass me. Zhu Jianwen was about to cry. If his mother was not good to him, he might have some thoughts after seeing this photo. However, since childhood, no classmate or friend's mother could be as kind to him as his mother, so he believed it 100% and he couldn't have any doubts. Why would mom embarrass you? Lin Yangkaiu looked at the other party with a disappointed look on her face. What you said makes mom so sad. Comrade, if you continue to behave like this, I will call the people from the security department to come over. Zhu Jianwen looked helpless. The students have already finished class. If you do this, the impact will be really bad. You're really not Xiaomi. Lin Yangkaiu looked at the other person doubtfully. But you are clearly my son, and do you believe there are two people who look so similar in the world? I didn't believe it before, but now. Zhu Jianwen spread his hands with a wry smile. I have to believe it or not, because the photo in your hand is the evidence. Then, after hesitating, Lin Yangkaiu looked at him. Can you find a place where we can have a detailed chat? I don't mean to make things difficult for you, I just want to find out the truth of the matter. For the sake of a mother who misses her son every day. For my sake, please help me, okay? He wanted to say no, but when he saw the expectant looks on Lin Yangkaiu and Chu Xia's faces, Zhu Jianwen had no choice but to nod in agreement and led the two of them to the small conference room. Where he couldn't see, Lin Yangkaiu raised his hand to his daughter-in-law. Thumbs up, she's so wise. There are some things she didn't say clearly at all, but her daughter-in-law actually knew what to do. To be continued. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. First marriage then love, Mr. Mayor please be kind. Author, Zhao Nuan. Chapter 1065. H2/U003 Xia, what's wrong with your mother-in-law? After dinner, Zhao Yulan found an opportunity to quietly ask her daughter. The person who was distracted from the moment we walked in the door was because she had a conflict with your father-in-law. No, Chu Xia shook her head. Mom, if I told you that Zhou Mikang has a twin brother, would you believe it? What? Zhao Yulan looked incredulous and shocked. Real or false? Of course it's true. Chu Xia sighed, glanced at Lin Yangkaiu who was sitting there in a daze, and said, Mom, please advise her when you have time. Don't worry, I asked my mother-in-law if I should tell you and Dad about this matter. She didn't object to the opinion. What's going on? You talk to Mom, otherwise Mom won't know where to start, right? In early summer, she told the reason why Zhu Jianwen was given away and how Lin Yangkaiu asked round and round about Zhu Jianwen's current life after the meeting. My mother-in-law must have a very conflicting mood. She hopes that the other person will be loved by her parents, but she also cannot accept the other person's treatment. The adoptive parents have a deep relationship, so it became what it is now. Then what does your mother-in-law mean? Do you want to recognize the other person or what? Zhao Yulan added without waiting for her daughter to answer, but she raised the child so big and suddenly someone exposed it, and she even thought about taking the child back. It doesn't seem very kind, don't you think? My mother-in-law didn't think so. She actually just wanted to get in close contact with the other person, talk more with the other person, and know about the other person's life since childhood. She also hoped to have the opportunity to meet the other person in the future. But after meeting today, she found that Zhu Jianwen had a very good relationship with her adoptive parents and did not doubt her life experience at all, which made her feel quite sad. After all, she had not given the child away willingly in the first place, and the family had carried the child away without her knowledge. It was difficult to open up this knot for a while. I tried to persuade her, but it didn't seem to have much effect. My mother is similar to her in age and should be able to understand her mood better. Talking to her about it may help her figure it out earlier. By the way, Grandma and the others don't know about this. Grandpa and father-in-law know about Zhu Jianwen's current life, but they have always disagreed with her mother-in-law getting involved again. Grandma has talked about it before, and it was probably her grandfather who said it later. Never mentioned it again. The mother-in-law said that she didn't want her grandma to be as worried about her because of her provoking this matter. As for her grandfather and father, she didn't want to disappoint them. As for her going to see Zhu Jianwen against their wishes, it was because she couldn't control herself at all. She said that if she wasn't allowed to meet him, she would go crazy. Mom, I also know that it was not kind of me to accompany my mother-in-law to do this, but to me, she is closer to me. Although the family who took Zhu Jianwen away was pitiful, their original behavior was also a bit inappropriate. Mother, you think so too, right? Yes. Zhao Yulan sighed, speaking of which, it's not easy for your mother-in-law. For so many years, you can only keep this kind of thing in your heart, how can you feel better? A mother has the same love and concern for any child. No matter how good or bad the life of the child she gives away is, she will always feel guilty. Even if she has no choice but to do so, her mood will be the same. Don't worry, Mom will have a good chat with your mother-in-law, so don't worry about this. After hesitation, she hugged her daughter's shoulders. Xiaomi, if you are worried, just talk to your parents. Talk, don't always keep your worries to yourself. Mom, I know. Chu Xia quickly smiled happily at Zhao Yulan. I really am not pretending. I believe that Zhou Mixang will come back safely. As for the fact that there has been no news about him, it must be because the situation does not allow it. She smiled sheepishly and continued, actually, I knew about Zhu Jianwen's existence when I was 100 years old. My sister-in-law told me. She suspected that Zhu Jianwen was Zhou Mixang, but as soon as I heard her description, I felt that this possibility was very small, and even if it was true, there must be a last resort reason why she did not contact us. I didn't tell my mother, not because I couldn't believe her, but because I didn't want her to think wildly and worry after hearing this. Now, the situation has become clear, so it won't be a big deal if I tell her, hee. Zhao Yulan glared at her daughter dissatisfied. You kid, you always like to keep things to yourself. If you had told me and your father earlier, we wouldn't have to make so many guesses. Look at how thin you are now, your mother is worried to death. She even discussed with your father whether to carry Nan Nan and Bei Bei to school every day and let you feed them. However, your father directly objected, saying that if you really do that, you are in school. It's really embarrassing. Hey, mother sometimes thinks, this person always has to worry about this and think about that in life, he is too tired. Xia, why don't you stop going to class and rest at home for a while? Mom, why did you turn to this topic again? Chu Xia looked at her mother helplessly. I said, it is normal for me to lose weight now. When both little ones can eat, I will take more. You won't be able to extract nutrients from them, don't you think? How about feeding them more milk powder? Forget it. Breastfeeding is always better than formula milk, unless it's really not enough for them to eat. Mom, don't worry, I'm still young and my body can handle it. And I don't like being fat at all. It looks ugly when I wear clothes, and my body is prone to all kinds of problems. Isn't there a saying that money can't buy you old age? Although I am not old now, it can be seen from this sentence that it is better to be thin than to be fat. Mother, don't you think so? You have such a mouth. Zhao Yulan shook her head and stopped trying to persuade her. She knew her daughter's character very well. As long as she did something right, no one could change it for her. Besides, although her daughter had lost a lot of weight, she was still energetic. The boss is pretty good and there's nothing to worry about. In the evening, there was no need for Zhao Yulan to sit there and talk about the topic. After going around in circles for a while, Lin Yangqiu smiled helplessly. Did Xia tell you about my visit to Jianwen today? Zhao Yulan smiled sheepishly. She was also worried about you and asked me to advise you. I am so clumsy and tongue-tied. It's true, haha. Actually, even if you don't ask me, I still want to talk to you about this matter. Sighing, Lin Yangqiu smiled bitterly. After listening to what the kid said about his childhood, I also have a general understanding of the old man and Zhou Jingping. The reason why I was not allowed to take the child back. The Zhu family who adopted Jianwen was from a pretty good family. After taking him back, they never gave birth to a boy or a girl. They really raised him as their own, and even loved their children more than ordinary parents and grandparents. However, they are not unprincipled in pampering their children. They still teach their children very well in terms of etiquette and rules. However, because they have nothing to do, the four elders put all their efforts into him. Because of this, his mother was particularly in love with him. He originally wanted to be a soldier, but his mother was forcing him to do so. He said that he was disappointed at the time, but later he figured it out. She loves him too much and his mother can't do that, so he is very satisfied with his current life. In fact, I could feel that the child had doubts in his heart when he saw Xiaomi's photo. However, he tried his best to use various reasons to dispel my thoughts. At the same time, he probably also advised him not to do too much. Think. You know, seeing him like this makes me feel very uncomfortable. If their family is not in this situation, I can still discuss that the two families can resume their relationship and the child will continue to stay in the Zhu family and continue to have the surname Zhu. But now it seems that if she really does that, her mother may really do something extreme. I saw that woman when she just gave birth to a child. At first glance, she is easy to get into trouble. If it is really because of our relationship, I admit, if she made a mistake, I will never forgive myself in my life, and Jianwen's kid is even less likely to forgive me. His personality is actually quite similar to Xiaomi, except that he is not as stubborn as Xiaomi. However, if you really mess with him, he will definitely not be easy to talk to. However, I can't just pretend not to know. I'm as anxious as a cat scratching my head. On the one hand, I'm worried about Xiaomi's current situation, and on the other hand, I'm worried that I won't be able to see Jianwen again. And they say that the twin brothers have telepathy. I specifically asked him about things when he was a child, and I always asked him when Xiaomi had an accident. Sure enough, bad things happened to him at that time. So, can you understand how I feel? Lin Yangqiu looked at Zhao Yulan eagerly. Now I really want to know from him whether Xiaomi is safe, but I can't tell him clearly, or even see him again. This feels really uncomfortable. I understand. Zhao Yulan also sighed. I really understand how you feel, but sister-in-law, you must force yourself not to think about this child. I know, I am advising you like this, it feels a bit like standing up and talking without back pain, but the fact is like this, what they did at the beginning was a bit unreasonable, but if you put it aside, most people will probably have this reaction when encountering such a thing. If you didn't personally agree, it was absolutely wrong for them to do this. The key issue is that you agreed to come down at that time. So, if you really think about it, you can't blame them for leaving like that, right? After so many years, their relationship has been deep in their bones. How do you think they will feel when you suddenly appear? Uncle Joe and Brother Joe don't let you see him, aren't they just afraid that something extreme will happen? Anyway, the child is doing well. As a mother, doesn't it just want the child to be safe? Since he lives a good life in that home, it's not bad to watch him from a distance, don't you think? Of course I understand the truth, but I can't persuade myself. Lin Yangkai covered her face in pain. All I can think about is the appearance of that child. It's so painful. R1152. First marriage then love. Mr. Mayor please be kind. Author, Zhao Nuan Nuan. Chapter 1066. The morning call was from Mr. Chen. He said, the model room has collapsed. When An Ran washed and changed his clothes and went over, he saw that the scene was in a mess. The entire ceiling of the model room fell down, smashing many things inside. The whole scene looked a bit miserable. The only good thing is that no one was injured in this accident. It is said that the collapse occurred in the morning. When two workers passed by in the morning, they only heard a boom before they opened the door and went in. There was a loud noise, and when they rushed over, opened the door and came in, the scene had become what it is now. Designer Gu, what do you think we should do now? Next Monday is the day for acceptance. As it is now, it is simply impossible to repair it. If we start construction again according to the design drawings, we will definitely not be able to make up for the time. Looking at the scene, people, it was such a mess that Mr. Chen didn't even dare to hope for the acceptance next Monday. And Rand stared intently at the large cement block falling from the ceiling, as well as the tables, chairs, buckets, and other tools that were damaged by the cement block. And Rand's heart was still beating very hard. He stepped forward, reached out to touch the smashed tables and chairs, and said calmly, how could this happen? I don't know either. Logically speaking, my construction is done according to the design drawings. If the drawings are okay, then I will do the construction. As he said that, Chen Gong suddenly felt that he had made a mistake and quickly shut up and looked at her. A little embarrassed. And Rand glanced at him lightly and said nothing. As the saying goes, good things don't go out and bad things spread thousands of miles. When I returned to the company, almost the entire company knew about the problem in the model room. Seeing her come in, the girl at the front desk came forward with a little worry. Sister Gu, are you okay? And Rand glanced at her, shook her head feebly, and said, it's okay. Just as they entered the hall, Ling Lin stood up from her position and walked towards her with some gloating. She said with a smile, oh, the designed work actually collapsed. You are the first in our company, right? And Ran looked at her steadily and said, until the specific reason is investigated, please be more careful what you say. Ha Ling Lin looked at her with a sneer, then I wish you good luck. I hope the investigation result is not a problem with the design drawing. After saying that, she turned around and returned to her seat. And Ran dragged herself back to her office tiredly, but when she pushed the door in, she happened to meet Xiao Xiao, the opposite door, opening the door to go out. When he saw her, he also had a half smile but not a smile on his face. He glanced at her and moved away. And Ran sat down on the chair with some slump, leaning her head on the back of the chair. She felt very tired at this moment, with an indescribable feeling of exhaustion. She couldn't figure out why the model room suddenly collapsed. She never thought there was anything wrong with her design. I don't think something went wrong with Mr. Chen during the construction. After all, they have been discussing it together these days. She spends more time in the model room than in the office. He sat up suddenly and opened the drawer to take out the drawings and look at them carefully. However, when he opened the drawer, he discovered that the design drawings originally placed in the drawer had disappeared and could not be found at all. While Anran was still rummaging through boxes and cabinets looking for design drawings, there was a knock on the office door. It was the office girl, saying that Huang Dexing asked her to come over. Anran nodded. Even if he didn't look for her, she would still have to get over it. This accident must have an explanation, for the company, the project, and herself. Suddenly he remembered something and stopped the office girl who was about to leave and said, "Wait a minute, is Chen Cheng outside? She didn't seem to see her when she came back just now." And such a big thing happened in the model room. She had been there for nearly an hour just now, but she didn't come over. The girl in the office was stunned for a moment, tried to think about it, shook her head and said, "I really don't think I have seen her today. Could she be late?" Anran's heart sank, and she seemed to have some bad premonition. In fact, she admired Chen Cheng very much. She was talented in design and had very special ideas. She even thought about cultivating her. It should take less than 2 years for her to accumulate a lot of experience. When you reach a certain level of work and management, you will probably surpass yourself. But, was she wrong? He stood up and strode out of the office, stopping directly in front of Chen Cheng's seat. He reached out and knocked on the door. Knock, knock, knock. In the office, Huang Dexing raised his voice and responded, "Come in." Anran pushed the door open and went in. Huang Dexing was sitting behind the desk. He looked up and saw her coming in. He frowned slightly and said calmly, "Sit down." Pulling up the chair in front of his desk and sitting down. Huang Dexing sat back in his chair, looked at Anran intently, and said, "I went to the construction site when I just came here. How could it be like this? Can you give me an explanation?" Anran lowered his head, then looked up at Huang Dexing, and said with a wry smile, "I will take full responsibility for this matter." Huang Dexing frowned and asked, "So, you admit that there was a problem when you designed the drawings?" No. Anran shook her head. "As for the design drawing, I am very confident that there will definitely be no problems when the design drawing was drawn. She had carefully calculated the proportions, pressure endurance, etc., and she would definitely there won't be any problems. After all, we are doing construction. It will be a place for people to live and move in the future. If you are not careful, an accident will happen. The accuracy of the design is the most basic responsibility and attitude you should have. Since it's not a matter of the design drawing, how do you say the responsibility lies with you?" Huang Dexing asked. Anran smiled bitterly, and said calmly, "Even if this accident hadn't happened, I still have to give an explanation for this project, because the drawings are missing. A designer actually lost his own drawings, and there were other. Is this even more ridiculous?" She wasn't sure whether the drawings were taken away by Chen Cheng, because she just called Chen Cheng and Chen Cheng didn't answer the call. "What?" Huang Dexing looked at her in shock. "The drawings, haven't they always been there for you? Why are they missing?" Anran shook her head and said feebly, "I don't know, I put it in the drawer in the office, but when I tried to look for it just now, I couldn't find it." "It was stolen?" Huang Dexing asked. He looked up at him and said, "Chen Cheng is missing." Huang Dexing frowned, obviously a little surprised by this. "Do you suspect that the collapse of the model room and the theft of the drawings have something to do with Chen Cheng?" "I don't know, I have no evidence. And now I can't find Chen Cheng. I can't confirm whether the two are really related to her." Anran said truthfully, she would not speak about anything she was not sure about. "Nonsense, even though I doubt it in my heart, there is no evidence after all." Huang Dexing was silent for a while before he said, "Anran, you have to know the importance of this project to our company. I resisted the pressure to get this case for you. I know you are very knowledgeable about design ideas and talent, and you did a good job, but these are not the point. The point is that our company must win this case, because that is our key goal in the second half of the year. But now that something like this has happened, you ask me how should I explain this to the board of directors. And Ran looked at him and asked, "What does the director want me to do?" Huang Dexing looked at her, and then said after a while, "You know, no matter why this happened, the result is already here. Even if Chen Cheng really stole the design drawings and tampered with the model room, these are not the point is, this case is definitely no longer possible for us, and all our previous efforts have been in vain." And Ran didn't speak, just listened calmly. Huang Dexing continued, "The company will find someone to investigate the real cause of the accident. The determination of responsibility for the accident will also be done after the investigation and dismissal. The most important thing now is how to restore the current situation." As he said that, he looked at it again. He glanced at her and continued, "This Mobile Manor case was originally the focus of our work in the second half of the year. Now that the model room is destroyed and the design drawings are lost, it is useless to try to remedy the situation. Even if we do this project, no matter how unwilling you are, you can only give up now. In this way, the board of directors will be unable to explain, but if you really want to explain, it is not impossible. Maybe we have other ways." As he spoke, Huang Dexing decided, looking at An Ran, there was something profound in his eyes. An Ran followed his words and asked, "What method is the director referring to?" Huang Dexing smiled, looked at her and said, "An Ran, you know what I want to say. If you can win several important projects in the science and technology city for the company in front of Special Assistant Su, oh, no, it should be Deputy Mayor Su now, I don't think the board of directors will say anything." And Ran didn't speak, just looked at him steadily. For the first time, I felt that marrying Su Yicheng actually had such a benefit. No matter how big a principal mistake it was, it could be corrected in this way. I really didn't know whether to cry or laugh. Huang Dexing saw his hesitation. Regarding this matter, An Ran never responded to him directly. He was always evasive and had no intention of helping at all. He didn't force her, and just said calmly, "You should think about it carefully. In fact, you also know that even if it is a real bid, our company has the strength to win it. This is unintentionally a guarantee point." And Ran didn't answer, just nodded, stood up and walked out of Huang Dexing's office. Returning to his office, An Ran leaned back on the chair with his head weakly, and Su Yicheng's call came in at this moment. He took the phone and picked it up. "Hello." Su Yicheng seemed to hear the strangeness in her tone and asked, "Is there a problem at work?" And Ran nodded lightly, and it took him a while to react. Suddenly he felt a sense of emotion, and couldn't help but ask, "Su Yicheng, what do you think if I go back and let you raise him?" Su Yicheng chuckled, and without asking why, he just chuckled and said, "Okay." And Ran also laughed. This was the best sentence she heard today. After laughing, An Ran said a little seriously, "Su Yicheng. Have I ever said that I prefer to hear you call me Yicheng?" Su Yicheng said seriously on the other side of the phone. And Ran was a little amused by his serious tone, nodded and replied, "You said it. Then are you still going to call your husband by his first name and surname like this?" Su Yicheng asked. And Ran chuckled lightly, but it was also from the heart. After a while, he faintly called out, "Yuchen." The voice was soft, not as natural as when she was with him in the presence of outsiders in the past, a little bit more awkward, even a little shy. Su Yicheng chuckled softly on the other side of the phone and responded, yet it could be heard from his voice that he was in a good mood at the moment. No, it should be said to be very good. After chuckling, An Ran returned to the topic she had just asked. She suppressed the smile on her face and said lightly, "If I asked you to use public money for personal gain, would you do it?" Su Yicheng on the other side of the phone was stunned for a while, then calmly asked, "Would you do that?" And Ran chuckled, shook her head and said, "I won't even at this stage." She still didn't want to ask Su Yicheng for favoritism in the bidding. Fairness and justice have always been her principle, otherwise she wouldn't reply again and again. A delay and rejection caused Huang Dexing Su Yicheng also smiled on the other side of the phone and said calmly, if you don't know how, then why are you asking? This is not superfluous. I thought you would say yes, and Ran said jokingly. Su Yicheng was silent on the other side of the phone for a while, then said, Ran, tell me if you have anything, okay. Ran was stunned for a moment, and then she spoke calmly, saying in a low voice, something went wrong at work, and I suddenly felt so powerless. She suddenly felt that she was actually a failure in life. Except for Lin Li, she seemed to have almost no friends. I couldn't ask for a better friend. In fact, she admired Chen Chen, but she didn't expect it to be like this. She didn't even know why she did this. Logically speaking, as a newcomer, she was not asked to draw pictures for more than half a year like others, but she was directly asked to do it. Participating in such a big project gives her a huge stage to express herself. But everything was a bit different from the way she imagined. If you are tired, I don't mind if you come back and let me support you. My savings should be enough for you to spend your whole life without working. Of course, it is not a squander, Su Yicheng said. His tone was determined and serious. Ran felt warm in her heart as she listened. It seemed that she was not afraid of anything after knowing that there was such a man behind her to back her up. She smiled lightly and said matter-of-factly, you don't need to tell me, I know that. I don't want to follow you at all. I meant it politely. Okay, Su Yicheng agreed with a smile, and the two of them talked on the phone for a while. It wasn't until Secretary Zheng came in to inform him that a meeting was about to begin that they hung up the phone. Sometimes it's like this, many things are squeezed together, and then come one after another, without leaving any space in between, and people are not even prepared at all. It was noon when I received a call saying that Lin Xiaofen had entered the hospital. The call was from Lin Xiaofen's colleague Aunt Zhang. She said that Lin Xiaofen suddenly fainted in the workplace and that she had been sent to the hospital by her colleagues in the company. Ran panicked for a moment, and it took her a while to recover. She grabbed her bag and rushed to the hospital. She didn't even hear Huang Dexing calling her at the door of the company. When we arrived at the hospital, Lin Xiaofen was still in the emergency room, and the doctor still examined her. Lin Xiaofen's other colleagues had returned to the company to continue working, leaving Aunt Zhang alone in the hospital waiting for Lin Xiaofen's family to come. Ran in slowly from the outside and saw Aunt Zhang sitting on a plastic chair outside the emergency room. She hurriedly asked, Aunt Zhang, how is my mother? What happened? Why did she faint suddenly? A series of questions showed her nervousness and worry at the moment. Aunt Zhang held her hand and comforted her. Ran, calm down. The doctor hasn't come out yet. Your mother will be fine. Don't worry. Why did she faint suddenly? She has always been in good health. Ran felt anxious and wanted to cry. Aunt Zhang patted her and pulled Ran to sit down on a plastic stool nearby. She could only comfort her in a soft whisper, it will be fine, don't worry. Ran buried her head in her hands. After a while, she raised her head and asked Aunt Zhang, where is my dad? Oh, when Xiaofen fainted just now, I called him immediately, but he didn't pick up the phone during class. I told him when I came back just now, and he should be on the way to the hospital now. Aunt Zhang said. Ran nodded, frowned, and turned to look worriedly at the emergency room with the curtain drawn up. Shua. The curtain in the emergency room was opened at this time, and a doctor in a white coat came out. While taking off his mask, he looked at Ran and said, are you a family member of the patient Lin Xiaofen? Ran nodded anxiously and asked hurriedly, yes, I am her daughter, doctor, how is my mother? Don't worry, your mother is fine. She probably fainted because she was so tired during this period, the doctor said, turning to look at the emergency room again, and continued, but I suggest you stay in the hospital for a few more days for observation, and then do a surgery. Full body examination, after all, the patient is not young. Hearing him say that her mother was fine, Enran was relieved and reassured. She nodded quickly and said, "Okay, let the hospital arrange everything. My mother was indeed a bit old, so a full body examination was still necessary. Otherwise, it would be too scary if he faints for no reason next time." In the emergency room, Lin Xiaofen had woken up at this time, but her expression was still a little distracted. She turned around and looked for a while before asking, "Where is this?" The nurse next to her smiled and said to her, "Auntie, this is the hospital. You just fainted, so you were sent to the hospital." Lin Xiaofen frowned and tried to think back. She only remembered that she was busy checking accounts just now, but suddenly her head buzzed, and then her vision went dark, and she couldn't remember anything. Mom and Ran came in from outside and looked at Lin Xiaofen, maybe a little scared. Her nose was sore and her eyes were a little hot. And Ran, Lin Xiaofen was a little surprised. She looked at her and asked, "Why are you here?" "You still said, you scared me to death." As she said that, the tears in her eyes fell uncontrollably. It really scared her. She just received a call from Aunt Zhang, and she couldn't help but know how you got here. "Oh, Xiaofen, just hope you're okay. You shocked everyone in the office just now." "I'm still scared." Aunt Zhang also came in from outside and saw her wake up, which made her feel relieved. Lin Xiaofen said with some embarrassment, "Sorry to trouble you. Look what I'm saying. Just hope you're fine." As he said that, he raised his hand to look at his watch and said, "Okay, since you're fine and Enran is here, I'll go back first. Go back and tell them your news, they are probably still worried about you." Lin Xiaofen nodded, "Thank you everyone for me." Aunt Zhang waved her hand and just said, "You should take good rest and don't worry about anything else. I will do your work for you." Then she turned to Enran and said, "Enran, take good care of your mother." Enran nodded and stood up to see her off. "Aunt Zhang, I'll see you out." "Okay, don't send her away." "It's not like I don't know the way," Aunt Zhang said cheerfully. "You can stay with Xiaofen and keep her company." After saying that, she turned around and left the emergency room. When only Enran and Lin Xiaofen were left in the emergency room, Enran still asked uneasily, "Mom, do you still feel uncomfortable?" Lin Xiaofen smiled at her, patted her hand and said, "No, I'm not uncomfortable. Don't worry." Then Enran was about to say something else, but suddenly she heard Gu Hengwen calling anxiously outside the emergency room, "Xiaofen, Xiaofen." "It's Dad." Enran stood up and went out, only to see Gu Hengwen standing outside anxiously, with worry and uneasiness written on his face. "Dad!" Enran called and walked towards him. Gu Hengwen turned around and then noticed Enran behind him. "Where is your mother? What did the doctor say? Why did you faint suddenly?" "The doctor said that my mother may have been overtired, which is why she suddenly fainted. She is fine. However, he suggested that we stay in the hospital for 2 more days of observation and do a detailed full-body examination," Enran said truthfully. Hearing this, Gu Hengwen felt relieved and asked, "Where is your mother?" Enran brought him to Lin Xiaofen, and saw him looking at his mother for a long time without saying a word. Finally, he sat down on the edge of the bed, reached out and held her hand tightly, and only whispered, "It's okay," said this to her and to herself. The 3 of them didn't stay in the emergency room for long. The nurse had already arranged the ward and came over to lead them directly to the ward. Gu Hengwen accompanied Lin Xiaofen to the ward, while Enran directly took the list to go through the hospitalization procedures for Lin Xiaofen. In addition, he stopped by the supermarket next to the hospital to buy some daily necessities. After Enran completed the hospitalization procedures and was about to go out to the supermarket to buy basic daily necessities, he walked to the door and was suddenly stopped by someone. "Gu Enran." Enran turned her head with some doubts, and saw a man of medium height behind him, wearing a black suit, with neatly combed hair, looking at her as if he was a little surprised. And Ran looked at him steadily and thought for a long time before remembering that the man in front of her was the best man she had ever met on a blind date, Lin Anja. First marriage then love, Mr. Mayor please be kind. Author, Zhao Nuan Nuan. Chapter 1067. Updated today. Sister Xiao. Looking at Xiao Yufang with unmoved expression, Lin Yangkai didn't know what to say. It turned out that she had misinterpreted this woman all along. Before that, she felt that the other party was a selfish woman who took her child away and kept the child under her wings, hindering the child's development. She felt that although the other party doted on Zhu Jianwen, it was not true love, but a kind of selfish possession. Now it seemed that she had really misunderstood this woman. If you don't love your children to the core, how can you make such a choice now? Ask yourself, if it were her, she probably wouldn't be able to do this. Sister, it was my fault back then. It was precisely because I saw your hesitation that I took the child away in a hurry. Over the years, I have loved Jianwen so much. On the one hand, I really regard him as my biological son. On the other hand, it is to make up for one's own guilt. I believe that as long as you stay for one more day, you will definitely take your children back. In comparison, living in a family like yours, your children will definitely get more. It was precisely because of this worry that I wanted to be twice as kind to him. I stopped him from joining the army because I was worried that if something happened, it would really cut out a piece of flesh from my heart. I have thought a lot these past few days, and I have really realized my selfishness. I am good to him, and I dote on him, all based on my own thoughts, and I have never thought about what he wants. Seeing the shock on his face when he took the application form for military enlistment, I felt very sad. If he was allowed to stay in the Zhu family, he would be in shock for the rest of his life. No matter whether he becomes a teacher or a soldier in the future. Let him return to a military family like yours, and I believe he will be happier. Sister, I'm sorry, it was all my fault in the past. I sincerely hope you can accept this child and treat him well. As for what other people in the Zhu family think, you don't have to worry either. Before coming, our family discussed it and we all agreed. They didn't come over, it's because. Biting her lip, Xiao Yufang's voice was choked, it's because I'm not mentally prepared yet. The voice behind it was completely replaced by the choking sound. At this moment, Lin Yangkai's mood also calmed down. Her thoughts naturally became clearer, and with a sigh, she took Xiao Yufang's hand. Sister Xiao, thank you for coming to talk to me today. I'll tell you the truth. I have often thought about him over the years. At the beginning, I did want to take the child back. My father-in-law and my husband did go looking for it. After they came back, they told me the child was well taken care of, so I gave up the idea to avoid adding 2 lives. I had no choice but to compromise, but I always felt uncomfortable in my heart. Therefore, when I learned about the child, I ran to see him immediately. Of course, I had no intention of winning him back, otherwise, I would not have asked my daughter-in-law to help. After actually seeing him, I finally feel relieved. You have taught your children very well and are excellent in all aspects. I admire your decision very much. Even a biological mother may not be able to achieve such a great outcome like you. Degree, but. After a pause, Lin Yangkai continued, the child is already nearly 30 years old. He has the right to make his own decisions. How to choose, let him make his own decisions, okay. The moment Zhu Jianwen walked into Zhou's house, Mrs. Zhou and Mr. Zhou both suddenly stood up. The daughter-in-law had already communicated the truth to them on the phone. Even though they were fully mentally prepared, they were still a little uncontrollably excited when they actually saw the child. This child looks so much like Xiaomi that if you don't look carefully, you can't tell them apart. The two are basically carved from the same mold. Seeing the old couple staring at him blankly, Zhu Jianwen's heart trembled. He had never doubted his life experience since he was a child, until Lin Yangqiu and Lin Chuxia went to find him a few days ago. It would be a lie to say that he didn't have any doubts in his mind at that time. There are people who look similar in this world, but if they are similar to that extent, who would believe it if they said there was no relationship at all? However, he couldn't bear to doubt his relatives, so he tried hard to convince himself that it was just a person similar to him. However, because of that photo, the military dream buried deep in my heart was awakened again. In fact, that night he found his mother standing at the door observing him through the crack in the door. However, because of the fear in his heart that he tried hard to suppress, he did not say hello to his mother. A few days later, when he came home from get off work, he found that the whole family looked at him solemnly and said that they were going to have a small meeting. He had a vague premonition in his heart and wanted to refuse, but he was also looking forward to it. As a result, he knew his true life experience. His parents and grandparents told him without any concealment. This also made him understand that he was not a child abandoned by his biological parents. If we really want to investigate right and wrong, the mother's fault is greater, but the years of upbringing will never change just because the blood relationship ends. As for whether the Zhu family would affect his future, he didn't care. Over the years, he had reached this point based on his own true ability. Although he had dreams of being a soldier, at this age, it seemed unrealistic. Therefore, he bluntly rejected the proposal to return to the Zhou family. However, even though he refused and returned to his room, it was difficult to calm down. If he was an abandoned child, he would not miss his biological parents at all, precisely because he knew that the other person had also been thinking about him. He was thinking about him, and then thought about the day when his biological mother went to find him, and there was a dull pain in his heart. Or was this a heart-to-heart connection between mother and son? Then, the thought of seeing his biological mother again grew in his heart. Although he tried hard to control his emotions, his mother still saw it. He could clearly see the sadness in his mother's eyes. Obviously, his actions made his mother uncomfortable, which made him even more conflicted and at a loss as to what to do. Then one day, when he returned home, he found that there were two more people in the hall, his biological mother and sister-in-law who had tested him before. In the end, the family reached a consensus that he would continue to stay in the Zhu family, and at the same time, he would also recognize himself as the Zhou family and move around with the Zhou family. From now on, he would be the son of the two families. Until now, standing in the hall of the Zhou family, he still felt like he was dreaming. He had never thought that his true identity was like this. Even if he had never been in contact with a family of this level, just looking at the families, looking at the layout and the magnanimity of his grandparents, he knew that for him, this was a side that he would never be able to touch. This also made him understand why his mother, father, and grandparents were so insistent, and it also showed that they really loved him deeply, otherwise, they would probably never let him know about it for the rest of his life. Okay. Okay. Okay, Mr. Zhou said hello 3 times. He stepped forward and put his arms around Zhu Jianwen's shoulders and patted him hard. Good boy, I look so much like your brother. Come and sit here. Look, your grandma. I was shocked when I saw you. Yes, yes. Mrs. Zhou stepped forward and took Zhu Jianwen's hand with a trembling voice. My child, I know you have lived a very good life these years, but grandma still doesn't trust you. Grandpa, grandma, sit down and talk. Originally, he thought that he would be too nervous not to know what to say, but when he really opened his mouth, Zhu Jianwen discovered that he actually had an instinctive feeling of closeness to them. When you were young, your father and I met you. After sighing, Mr. Zhou continued, originally, we wanted to bring you back, but your grandma and your mother protected you. You can tell by their looks that they really like you and won't treat you badly. Think about it, they are pitiful. If they really take you back, the family will probably collapse, so we came back empty-handed. Over the years, I have thought about going over to see you, but every time I have been forced to suppress it. We are just afraid that we will not be willing to let you stay there after looking at it. And to be honest, if you were brought home when you were young, your life might not be better than with your adoptive parents. Therefore, no matter when your child reaches your age, the people closest to you will be them. Of course, what Grandpa said does not mean that the Joe family disowns you. Grandpa can assure you that in this family, you and your eldest brother and second brother have the same position. If your parents and grandparents over there don't have any objections, we can get together during the holidays. If they don't want to, you must stay with them. Okay, okay. Old Mrs. Joe interrupted the old man impatiently. The child just came in, and you gave him an education class. She turned to look at her newly recognized eldest grandson with a doting look on her face. Jianwen, your father and your second uncle, second aunt, and third uncle will be back in the afternoon. My child, please don't misunderstand that they don't pay attention to you. There are really many things going on during this period, so it's hard to ask for leave and come back. Zhu Jianwen quickly smiled and said, Grandma, I know, I won't misunderstand. Besides, we will have plenty of time in the future, and we are not in a hurry right now, right? Yes, we have just met, and Grandma doesn't know your temper, so we should follow the principle that one sentence more is better than one sentence less, and try to avoid misunderstandings as much as possible. Don't think that Grandma is being a heretic with you. Don't worry, I won't think too much about it. While talking to the old lady, Zhu Jianwen's nervousness completely disappeared. To be honest, he had heard his parents and grandparents tell him about the Zhou family's background. After being fully prepared mentally, I didn't expect that the old man and the old lady were as approachable as his grandparents. To be continued. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. First marriage then love, Mr. Mayor please be kind. Author, Zhao Nuan Nuan. Chapter 1068. Update 2. Zhu Jianwen's return was an absolute joy for the Zhou family. Except for Zhou Mixang, who had temporarily lost contact, everyone else was recalled to their ancestral home for a happy reunion. Zhou Zikang, Zhou Huikang, Zhou Jiping, and Zhou Xiangping quickly became familiar with Zhu Jianwen. Zhou Nanping was a little slower, but her attitude was also very kind. Only Zhou Zhonkang, apart from politely saying hello when they met, never talked to him again. Other side. Chu Xia's family also rushed back together with Nan Nan and Bei. The appearance of the two little guys immediately stole Zhu Jianwen's limelight, which made Zhu Jianwen finally breathe a sigh of relief. In the past 2 days, he was protected by his elders every day like a treasure. He couldn't stand it anymore. However, among all the enthusiasm, the coldness made him feel a little uneasy. Could it be that he felt that his arrival would affect the interests of the other party? Just as he was hesitating whether to ask the other party to explain, Zhou Xiangping sat over and followed his eyes and understood what he was worried about. She immediately said, "Second brother, don't pay attention to Lao Wu. He is just crazy. My own, if the problem is not solved, he keeps making faces all day long, as if everyone owes him money." After hesitating, Zhu Jianwen said, "After all, he is the second uncle's only son. If he is unhappy because of my appearance, wouldn't it be bad?" "What's wrong with that?" Zhou Jiping also sat over. "His character is that the more you coax him, the more mysterious he becomes. Just leaving him alone is the best solution." Chu Xia rushed downstairs while talking. "Just wave." Chu Xia has always had psychological barriers to sitting face to face with Zhu Jianwen. First, she accompanied Lin Yangqiu to find trouble, and second, because he looked too much like Zhou Mi, which made her feel unable to face it. especially when there is no news about Jo Mikang. But when the eldest aunt called her, she couldn't pretend not to see her, so she had to sigh secretly and come over. Second sister, what's the matter? Sit down and talk. Jo Jipping forced her to sit next to him. We are all a family, and I won't beat around the bush with you. You have been avoiding Jianwen. Right. Hearing what Jo Jipping said, Zhu Jianwen, who originally looked at ease, turned red and wanted to excuse Chu Xia. But I didn't know what to say, so I couldn't say a complete sentence for a while. His appearance made Chu Xia feel less uneasy. She immediately looked at Jo Jipping and said truthfully, "Second sister, I didn't mean to hide from second brother. I'm just a little embarrassed." She smiled apologetically at Zhu Jianwen. "Second brother, I was really sorry for that day, and so were we. There's nothing you can do about it. Don't take it personally. Brother and sister, why are you still thinking about that? Didn't you already explain it clearly when you went to my house?" Zhu Jianwen smiled uncomfortably. "Let's not mention this matter again, okay?" "Okay." Chu Xia nodded. "Actually, I haven't thought about how to face my second brother. You and Jo Mikang are so similar. I'm still a little bit awkward in my heart. I definitely don't have any objections to you. Don't get me wrong. Speaking of which, I would also like to thank my siblings. If my siblings hadn't accompanied my mother to see me, I probably would never have recognized the Jo family in this life. Originally, I was slightly repelled by this matter. After all, I have always regarded my grandparents, parents, and parents as close relatives. Suddenly, I said that I have no blood relationship with them, and they were brought home by them in unscrupulous ways. Which is a little hard to accept in my heart. But now I have figured it out, without the persistence of the Zhu family, I would not have been able to have more loving elders than others. After all, I have really made a profit, so I am very grateful to my siblings for their generous actions before. I also believe. After a pause, he still said what he was thinking truthfully, I also believe that my brother will return safely. Chu Xia nodded. Of course, if he promises me, he will definitely do it. I absolutely believe him in this. It seems that the relationship between the younger brother and sister should be very good. Zhu Jianwen looked at Chu Xia with envy. Such trust is really not something ordinary people can achieve. Without waiting for Chu Xia's answer, Zhou Xiangping asked Xianlei first, "Why, the relationship between the second brother and the future second sister-in-law is not good?" "It's okay," Zhu Jianwen smiled, "we have been getting along since junior high school. Her parents are quite satisfied with her, but her mother doesn't like me very much and always pushes her to go on blind dates." Chu Xia immediately grasped the key point from Zhu Jianwen's words and asked, "What second brother cares about is that the prospective second sister-in-law went north to go on a blind date with second brother, right?" "Yes," Zhu Jianwen nodded. "She said she believed in me and believed in the future guarantee I could give her, but if someone introduced her to someone with better conditions than me, she would still go on a blind date. I guess that my mother's request for me to recognize the Jo family has something to do with this matter, but don't worry, I will never trade my background with the Jo family for my own marriage. Second brother, such a person is not worthy of being my second sister-in-law." Zhou Xiangping interrupted Zhu Jianwen. "My suggestion is, don't tell her about returning to the Jo family at all. If she wants to say goodbye again, Gao Zhi the second brother just breaks up." Zhou Jipping echoed, "Although Xiaoxi's words don't sound good, the truth is that if the other person is someone who dislikes poverty and loves wealth, there is really no point in living together." "Hey." Zhu Jianwen sighed, "After all, it is a 10-year relationship. Even if we understand the truth, it is difficult to make a decision to separate. Otherwise, it would not have been delayed until now. Moreover, I don't think she dislikes the poor and loves the rich. Otherwise, she would probably have broken up with me long ago. She is very filial and compromises to go on a blind date just to make her parents feel better. I didn't tell her about recognizing her back to the Joe family, not because I was on guard against her, but because I didn't want her parents to do anything unexpected again. To be honest. After a pause, Zhu Jianwen couldn't help but shake his head. Sometimes I wonder how such utilitarian parents could give birth to such a good daughter. Is she the only one in her family? Zhou Xiangping asked. There is also an older brother and a younger brother. That's understandable. Zhou Xiangping looked astonished. Her parents want her to find a good in-law. They must be trying to win over her older brothers. Many old people are like this. I can't say they are wrong, it's just. Shaking her head, Zhou Xiangping didn't say any more. If we really think about it, isn't her mother-in-law such a person? Second brother, have you figured out what to do next? Chu Xia interjected and asked. Zhu Jianwen sighed, let nature take its course. I don't want to talk about the Zhou family's affairs. If she gives up, I will let her go. As long as she is willing to be with me, I will definitely marry her. Of course, I must emphasize again that I am willing to accept the Zhou family just because of this family affection. I will never rely on this identity to seek benefits for myself. Second brother can't say that. Now that you have recognized the Zhou family, you can rely on the family for some things, so don't refuse. After a pause, Zhou Xiangping looked at Zhu Jianwen seriously. I think there are some conveniences it is a very stupid thing to refuse even though it is clearly there. Of course, I'm not talking about you relying on this to be with your future second sister-in-law. I'm talking about work, or things that can bring convenience to your life. In the past, I was quite resistant to this matter, but then my third sister-in-law got married and after talking to her several times, I felt that my original idea was quite silly. If something can obviously be done in one step, why should it be divided into 2, 3, or even more steps? If you have that time and energy, wouldn't it be better to do other things? Sister-in-law, is that so? Chu Xia, whose name was called, could only continue what she said. Yes, that's what I mean, but what should I do, second brother? Don't let us influence you. The key is that you feel comfortable in your heart. I understand what my sister and younger siblings mean. Don't worry, I won't make it difficult for myself. Emotionally, I plan to do it in the simplest way. At work, I won't be too rigid. However, I am just a professional now. For an ordinary teacher, even if my family wanted to help me, they wouldn't be able to help me. However, I will work hard. When one day I am qualified to stand higher, if someone takes the wrong path, with our family, I will have nothing to be afraid of. It's not tiring to talk to people who understand. Zhou Jiping gave Zhu Jianwen a thumbs up. That's what we want to say, second brother. Actually you and third brother have similar ideas. In terms of personality, you are more. He needs to be gentle. That guy won't show mercy to others when he talks. You will know when he comes back. However, I believe that the two of you will get along very well. He likes people with your personality. Twins, they will definitely get along. Zhou Xiangping smacked her lips in envy. Why doesn't mom make us twins? I especially want to feel the feeling of spiritual connection. Zhou Jiping. Is this easy to compare with? She was really defeated by her girl. After staying for another day, Zhu Jianwen returned to the capital. For him, recognizing the Zhou family was just a formality. He would still have to live in the Zhu family for the rest of his life. When leaving, everyone greeted each other warmly, except Zhou Zhonkong, who had a sad face. After Zhu Jianwen left, Mr. Zhou called out to Zhou Zhonkong, who also wanted to take the opportunity to slip away. Sit down, let's have a chat while the whole family is here, and express what's on your mind. Don't keep a straight face all day long, as if the whole family owes you. I have nothing to say. Zhou Zhonkong looked at Mr. Zhou indifferently. In Grandpa's heart, My grandson is dispensable, right? Or, you can just drive me out of the Joe family. I promise, as long as if you do that, I will never come back shamelessly. To be continued. First marriage then love, Mr. Mayor please be kind. Author, Zhao Nuan Nuan. Chapter 1069. Update 2. Xiaozhong, before Mr. Zhou could say anything, Liang Xiaohong called out urgently, stepped forward, and grabbed her son's arm. How could you say such bastard words? Hurry up and apologize to Grandpa. I'm right. Zhou Zhongkang looked at his mother with a stubborn look on his face. Growing up, do I have any place in this family? I admit that the third brother is very promising, but the attitude of elders towards juniors cannot be so utilitarian, right? It's okay for the outside world to judge people based on their abilities. How can one's own relatives be like this? Mom, is it interesting for you to swallow your anger all day long? Whether it's the uncle's house or the third uncle's house, everything is smoother than ours, but what's the reason? When the third brother has a problem, the whole family helps to solve it. When the third uncle has a problem, the whole family still helps to solve it. Why is it that no one cares about me? Isn't Dad the son of the Zhou family? Am I not the grandson of the Zhou family? I have long had enough of this kind of humiliation and forbearance. Now that everything has been made clear today, let's just figure it out. If our position in the Zhou family is still like this in the future, there will be no return. What is the relationship? Snapped. With a heavy slap on the face, Zhou Zhongkang looked at Zhou Gangping blankly for a long time, with a mocking smile on his lips. Very good, great, since you are so willing to be ignored, I won't say anything. From now on, when the road turns upside down, let's go our separate ways. You will treat me as your son, and I won't have you as your father. I promise everyone here that I, Zhou Zhongkang, will never do anything under the name of the Zhou family. Xiaozhong. Liang Xiaohong pulled her son tightly, her voice full of pleading. Stop making trouble, okay? You kid. Don't get angry like this when you are not in a good mood. If there is a problem, let's solve it, okay? How to solve it? Zhou Zhongkang looked at her indifferently. Besides you, who else in this family really cares about me? Probably. Even if I die outside, no one will shed a tear, right? Let him go. Zhou Gangping glanced at his son in disappointment and reached out to pull his wife. I made a mistake but blamed all the problems on others. It's okay not to have such a son, otherwise he will be angry to death early. Brother. Biting her lip, Zhou Nanping took a step forward and looked at Zhou Zhongkang seriously. My brother and I are siblings, but since we were little, my brother has never looked at me in the eyes. When I was young, I especially envy the second and fourth sisters because the eldest brother and the third brother always protect them. I really hope that when I am bullied, my brother can also protect me. Unfortunately, after all these years, it is still a dream that has not come true. Because of this, I feel particularly disappointed and feel that I am superfluous in this family. No one really cared about me, so after I got married, I put all my thoughts on my husband's family. As long as my in-laws ask me to do something, I will do my best. No matter how much hardship I have to endure, I will not complain. When my father-in-law got into trouble, my family couldn't help me. They became more and more indifferent to me, but I still tried every means to do it. Please them. It's a pity that Fang Tao has never really been in love with me. All he wants is a puppet who can help him prosper. Fortunately, I used to regard him as my closest relative. But even in this situation, I still couldn't let him go. My third brother asked me to divorce him, but I insisted on staying with him for a while, just hoping to save the relationship. But in fact, in the past few months, we have been basically torturing each other. If my parents, grandparents, aunts, and sisters-in-law hadn't been trying to persuade me to relax, I might have gone to extremes long ago. Brother, it's only now that I understand that in the past we closed ourselves off and neglected the kindness of our family members to us. It seems that we are not as valued as our eldest brother, third brother, second sister, and fourth sister. This is actually due to our personalities. Think carefully, what have we done for this family since childhood? Apart from asking and complaining, what else have we given this family in return? Why can we be so confident when we just ask for it? Brother, I've wanted to tell you for a long time that all your unhappiness is caused by yourself. In fact, you are happier than me. My sister-in-law is sincere to you, and she is not doing it because of our family's background and benefits. Although your sister-in-law insists not to come back and even proposes to divorce you, she has never dated any other man during this time, right? I'm not urging you to divorce, right? In fact, she has been waiting for you to find her, waiting for you to look back. If you don't cherish such a good woman, you will probably not be happy in this life. I know that my mother and aunt have advised you these words countless times, but I still want to emphasize it again, because my brother and I are in many similar situations. Brother should also understand that what I say is completely from the bottom of my heart. This is my personality. If it didn't really touch me and approve of everyone's actions, I would never say these words. Regardless of whether I can listen to it or not, I hope that I can calm down and think about what I said. If I still insist on doing it my own way in the end, I will never talk about it again. After Zhou Nanping said this, the room fell into a long silence. It was not that what she said was touching, but that this was the first time she had spoken so much at home since she was a child. In the past, she was always full of resentment. Whenever she came back, she would find faults and eventually slam the door and leave. Because of this, after she said such a thing, Zhou Zhonkong did not laugh at her, but fell into a rare deep thought. Why can't he listen to what others say, but Zhou Nanping's words alone can make him think about it? The reason is simple. As Zhou Nanping said, they are both aliens in the Zhou family. They have similar personalities and situations. The only difference is that Zhou Nanping met a scumbag and Zhou Zhonkong met a good woman. Zhou Zhonkong knew everything that happened to Zhou Nanping, and he also knew that Zhou Nanping was not trying to please anyone in this way, nor was she deliberately saying things against his will to persuade him. However, he was asked to bow his head to Mei Xiaofeng, but he couldn't do it. He has always been in charge. If he lowers his head, how can he hold his chest up again at home? Although he is not as developed as his eldest brother and third brother, he still has self-esteem. He was angry with the Zhou family because he and Mei Xiaofeng had been separated for so long. Except for his mother, everyone else had a wait-and-see attitude. If the old lady went to Mei's house, wouldn't everything be solved? If this matter were brought to bear on the third brother, would everyone still have this attitude? A knot is not tied in a day, and it cannot be untied in a day. Therefore, although Zhou Zongkang's attitude softened, in the end, he still walked away. Liang Xiaohong sat on the ground crying, her face turned pale. She was really about to collapse. Why did having a son and a daughter make her so worried? Her son is like this, and her daughter is like this. Compared with her eldest brother and his family, she feels like a failure. Especially, today after Zhu Jianwen was found, her feeling of loss was even stronger. She was not as good as her sister-in-law in every way before, but now, she is even more incomparable. Looking at the brother-in-law's family, although Zhou Yiping is not worried, Zhou Huikang is smart and sensible. Now Wang Lei has given his brother-in-law a fat son. As long as he is educated well, he will definitely not be a bad person in the future. On the one hand, he is sad because of the gap between himself and his sister-in-law. On the other hand, he is worried about his son. If he keeps thinking about it like this, his daughter-in-law will be disappointed sooner or later. These days, she visits her daughter-in-law every other week. Although the other party is still very enthusiastic towards her, the disappointment and politeness in her eyes makes her more and more frightened. If such a good wife can be lost by her son, can the son still be happy in this life? Mom, can you solve the problem like this? Zhou Nanping pulled Liang Xiaohong up hard. On the other side, Yu Tao also stretched out her hand and finally dragged Liang Xiaohong to sit on the sofa. Mr. Zhou and Mrs. Zhou didn't say anything. To be honest, they were very disappointed with the second son and his family. The children were already troubled enough. The daughter-in-law used to be fine, but now she can't get along. Mesa. The child has been taught wrongly. If he continues to follow the other party, will it be okay in the future? Therefore, Zhou Zhonkong left them without stopping him, but his daughter-in-law's crying was clearly complaining about them. The palms and backs of the hands are full of flesh. How can they feel better when Zhou Zhonkong has developed to this stage? However, for the sake of their children's future, they can only be cruel. If the child can get better, it will be a blessing for the whole family. If this is the case for the rest of their lives, they can only sigh and say that they have tried their best. You go back to the house. Zhou Gangping frowned and glared at his wife. He also felt a fire in his heart. His son and daughter were already annoying him enough, but his wife added another one. She was planning to kill him. Liang Xiaohong also knew in her heart that what she was doing was wrong, but she couldn't control herself. She felt that her relationship with her son had finally taken a step forward, so why did it deteriorate to what it is today? She got up obediently and went back to the room. Zhou Gangping apologized to Mr. Zhou and Mrs. Zhou and followed in. Chu Xia, who had been sitting silently next to Zhao Yulan, sighed secretly. The performance of the second uncle and the second aunt was really disappointing. The son didn't think that he could guide him slowly. The daughter had already reached the pass. Have they ever cared about it? Zhou Nanping's current situation is really one step from heaven to hell. She was really too lazy to deal with the things the other party had done to her before. However, after all, they were a family and the other party sincerely changed her ways. She still hoped that the other party would have a good ending. Forget it, let her be a generous person, and work hard not for Zhou Mikang, who is on a mission far away. Second sister, fourth sister, fifth sister, we haven't seen each other for a long time. Let's go to my room and chat for a while. Chu Xia stood up and invited several people. To be continued. LWXS